and welcome to another edition to Counseling Connection. We're glad you are joining us for our podcast today, Real Talk with Tinger, and hopefully we will be able to provide you with some real, relevant, and reliable strategies to these common everyday issues we face as Christians. And hopefully from today's episode, you will gain some insight on how to help you to prevent yourself from burnout. So I'm excited to have my guest today, Dr. Janeé Harris, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and give you a little bit of her background before we jump into this topic of how to prevent burnout.
Well, thank you, Ms. Tinger, for having me. My name is Janeé Avent Harris. I am a counselor. I'm a counselor educator. And so I've been a counselor since 2010, and I've worked in a variety of settings. So I've done children and adolescent inpatient. I have done your more traditional outpatient work, but my heart was in college counseling. And so I worked a lot with college students who were adjusting to life outside of the home, who were figuring things out, who were learning what is an emergency, what is not an emergency. And so I really, really loved working with college students and young adults. And so I'm also a faculty member, and so I teach people how to become counselors. So I train school counselors, clinical mental health counselors, and student affairs and college counseling students. So I think we share our pirate love, and so I feel so fortunate to be able to do work in this region, to give back to Eastern North Carolina, and to contribute to all that I think the region can be. And so I also do research as a part of that. And my research has really been centered around this intersections of faith and mental health, which is why I love what you're doing, because it goes right along with, I think, some of the work that I've been doing in ways in which we can talk about these topics without them being stigmatized, without it being so taboo, but to normalize that while we may have all the things that we need to have in our spiritual lives, that we still are humans. And so with our humanity comes life circumstances. And you can know all the Bible that you want to know. You can go to every Sunday service you want to go to, but life happens. Bible study, everything, right? But life happens. And so I've thought about times in my life where, it hasn't been a Bible verse that came to me first, right? There are times that I've been in the bed just kind of crying or struggling to get up. And so that just prompted me to really think about how we merge the two worlds, because they don't have to operate in silo, and you're proof of that, right? That you can talk about these things in a way that that honors all parts of a person. And so I say to counselors, you can't expect your clients to leave their spirituality outside the door. And then I say to pastors, you can't expect your congregants to leave their emotions at the door either. And so how we speak to both of those things is very important. So that's a little bit about me professionally. Personally, which I think always informs my professional life, I'm married. I've been married for 6 years. My husband is Tevis, so hey, Tevis. We have 2 kids. So I have a 6-year-old and I have a 20-month-old, which we'll talk about burnout and trying to navigate all of that. And so, but I'm also really proud to be a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. So all those things are very, very important to me. And so I appreciate you allowing me to talk a little bit about it.
Well, I am honored that with your busy schedule that you were able to come today, because I do truly believe as a Christian that counseling is okay.
It is more than okay.
Our pastor says counseling is okay. So I love to be able to bring out the issues that we have, these everyday issues, and to know that God has put his hands and feet on earth through us to be able to help people get through that rough time.
Right.
You know, counseling here at Word Tabernacle is open and free to all who would like to come and take part. And we value your time, so I would like to just jump right in. And I do want to let you know that this podcast birthed out of an article that I was writing last month for the newsletter. And I entitled that newsletter article, End of Summer Jitters. And I started thinking about how great summer was, you know, spending time at the beach with family, you know, not as many long days at work, time off, family reunions, just a wonderful time.
Yes.
Then while I'm writing this article, I jump over in my mind to, oh my God, I got this. What else can I put on my schedule today? I won't finish today until 8:30. And I just got the jitters. And I was like, okay, the anxiety is already starting back. I know the days are going to be shorter, not much sunlight, and I'm starting to be like, okay, I got to be able to handle this. I got to handle this better. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that took one look at your to-do list when September 1 hit and thought, summer's over. So I was like, okay, we're not going to go down this road. We're not going to start out with burnout. So we just going to talk about burnout and how to prevent burnout. So that's why this podcast came about. And I was like, Dr. Janeé juggles a lot. So she can probably help us.
I can be a living testimony about burnout.
And talk about this. So, Dr. Janeé, I usually always start out with some background data, some statistics, so people understand that this is just not something I thought about, but it's a real issue that's going on. And when I was looking at my data, one of the first things that I recognized was what careers have the most burnout. And number one was social workers. And although the article said social workers, we know that includes counselors, psychologists, anybody in that helping field. Because of who we are. You know, 75% of us show signs of burnout. And then I saw teachers. It was like data before COVID, it was 1 in 6 teachers. Now it's 1 in 4 teachers. I'm like, oh my, we need to talk about this because we are losing teachers daily. And we need teachers. We need counselors. And those are the people that we are losing because such a high rate of burnout. So let's look at a little bit of the data that I had up there. That most employees have felt overworked and exhausted. But it's the chronic feelings when you go to work every day with that dread. That's when you have to pay attention that burnout is coming and I need to do something.
When it takes longer to get up in the morning than it usual does.
Because you're like, I'm never going to finish. And I thought it was interesting that 2/3 of full-time employees have experienced burnout. Over 2/3 of the workforce have experienced some type of burnout. And it's becoming, an ongoing thing. We used to could snap back after resting a day or two. I was talking to a person yesterday, and I wasn't really trying to hear her conversation, but I heard that person say, I'm taking off the whole month of December. I said, okay, time out. You taking off the whole month of December? She said, yeah. She said, I've tried to take off 1 or 2 days, but when I get back, I find out that the 1 or 2 days did not really prevent burnout. It just gave me 2 days to really think about what was going on at work. So she said, I've decided that I'm taking off the month of December. She said, well, at least I'm taking off 3 weeks. I said, okay, but within that 3 weeks, you need to come up with a plan. So she is working on coming up with a plan while she shuts down for that month in December. So I think that's where we get caught up. We don't come up with a plan. We take some days off, but then we just go back to the same old, same old. I thought it was interesting that 30% of workers say that their workplace has nothing for burnout. If they're feeling overwhelmed, if they're feeling, just, I can't take anymore. Their jobs don't offer any help. So today, I hope we can talk about some things that we can do.
Yeah.
So a few more statistics, some which I know that we know, but we're going to share them anyway. And it is, 57% of people feel like they have to be accessible to their jobs 24/7. And I have to say, ouch on that. Because I give clients my personal phone number. And I do that because I don't want anybody to be in crisis and not feel like they don't have a person they can reach out to. I may not can do anything, but at least they know if I need someone, I can call this person. And during those times, I really should, if it's not an emergency, and I've gotten better, if it's not, you about to die kind of situation, or you about to jump kind of situation, I will say, we can talk about this tomorrow. But a lot of people feel like they have to be on call 24/7. And I'm not talking about people that just are in our roles as counselors. I'm just talking about any workplace. There are lots of bosses that don't know where to draw the line. They don't rest, so they don't value your time. So that's something that we really need to work on, is letting our bosses know how valuable our family time is, me time, all those things. Employees that feel unsupported by their managers upper level, they show a high level of burnout. So those are just a few of the causes of burnout. There are lots of others. But I do want to spend a minute with the demographics of burnout.
I think that's interesting.
Because women experience more burnout than men. 32% versus 28%. That's a lot. And when we think about the hierarchy of things, husband, male, should be experiencing a little more, head of the household. But we don't necessarily see that. And data does not show that. And women that are in leadership positions, you know this, I know that. We experience more burnout because we feel like we have to perform more. Just because we are female. Not that we crossed every I, dotted, every T, got those advanced degrees, but it's something men versus women that we are always striving. We feel like we have to always be going above and beyond, which causes some burnout. And it talks about having young children, which causes additional stress. So there again, mothers typically have more burnout than daddies, and I'm not gonna really get into that. I'll
get into it a little bit.
I'm gonna let you talk about that. And the last little demographic thing that I wanted to bring out before we start our discussion is when you talk about the money that people make. And I thought it was very interesting until I really took a little deeper dive with women, well, not necessarily women, but those in the workforce, that middle class, 30,000, I guess, to 60,000, experience more burnout than those that make more money, that 100,000 or more. And I was like, you would think those making more money are working harder, so they would experience more burnout. But then I realized when you up there at the top, you telling the people down below what to do. So that's why that middle income is experiencing more burnout. So I'm like, wow, we've got to start protecting ourselves no matter where we fall on the scale. So let's talk about this. So let's talk about, first of all, what are some key things that you feel are important to alleviate burnout?
So I always start these conversations saying that I talk from both my professional experience and my personal experience, and that I haven't figured everything out. And so part of the work that I do is me figuring things out. I don't get it right all the time. I mess up, but I'm figuring it out. I think to prevent burnout, you have to first recognize when you are burnt out. And so what are some of the signs that we miss? You talked a little bit about, struggling a little bit to get up in the morning and go to work. One of the key ones that we see is irritability. So finding yourselves more irritable. And oftentimes you would think that you project that irritability in the workplace, but you typically don't do that, right? You save it till you get
Right.
home, so you're more irritable with those
Projection.
you love, right? You project it. And you talked about helping professions, and so one of my colleagues and I have done a couple of presentations with nurses and medical students, and one of the key symptoms of burnout is a loss of compassion, so compassion fatigue. And so for those of us who are helping professions, when we find ourselves like, dreading that 3:00 client, I'm dreading that, I really want to go in there, and we get into these professions because we love helping people, we love being there with people. And so when you find yourself, or if you're a teacher, you're like, for a period, like, I don't want to go in there with them. That compassion fatigue is a big one. And then just some of the symptoms that we see that can mimic or that are similar to depression and anxiety. And so your appetite changes. Maybe you see fluctuations in your weight. Maybe your mood is more sad more often. You are not enjoying things as much as you once did. And so I think all those things we have to be aware of, and it is important to recognize them before we can even talk about alleviate. And so I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I feel like in some ways, as a society, we are all burnt out. And so the conversation now has to be like, how do we work our way back from that, and then talk about prevention? I was even thinking, as parents, like, we've been holding our breath the last 2 years. So like, you get into a routine, and then the school calls you and like, oh, your child's been exposed, you gotta keep them home for 10 days, or they have COVID, you gotta keep them home, you gotta go get them tested. Like, there has not been I don't want to say normal, but typical routine of things. And so the other day I was like, why am I so tired? And I'm like, well, I've been living the last 2 years essentially holding my breath for a variety of reasons. So I was pregnant during COVID. I had a promotion during COVID, and then I went on maternity leave. I tried to come back from maternity leave. Just things were all out of sorts. And so of course I would be tired. Like, I haven't had time, to your point earlier, to rest and restore. And so I would say to people, just be really cognizant of how you're feeling. You don't have to, burnout doesn't have to be the end of the story, but you need to recognize if you are there and just be honest, so then you can recalibrate. And so that would be the first thing that I would say, do. There are a bunch of things in those demographics that kind of spoke to me and resonated with me. You said earlier, I juggle a lot. I do. And I'll never forget, I was reading Michelle Obama's book, and she talked about how, now Barack is like the president, but like she's there, and she was like, trying to do the kids. And this may have been before he was elected. And like, both of their days were long, both of them were working, but she was like, he finds time every day to go to the gym. Like, he was healthy, right?
Right.
And she was like, oh no, I'm about to wake up in the morning and protect this time. And so to your point earlier, one of the like most self-care people I know in the world is Travis Harris. Like, he is very clear about what he needs to restore himself. And I found myself like resenting that. I'm like, he creates these boundaries. He's like, this is my time. This is what I need. So I started saying, oh, okay. Well, I'm about to go walking. Here go the kids. Y'all do what y'all do. I'll be back. And so really just being clear about the boundaries that we need to set for ourselves. And it's hard, but I started thinking about it as like, I went walking this morning. Did I necessarily have the time? No. But I also don't have the time not to. Like, I needed my head to be clear. I needed to process some things. And I was like, if I don't take this 30 minutes, then the rest of the 8 hours are going to be null and void. They're not going to be effective. But if I take this 30 minutes, then maybe I'll actually be more productive the rest of these 8 hours.
And one of the things that's key that you said was, when we take that time, not to feel guilty,
right,
because we took the time. Mm-hmm. I used to feel guilty, and I was on Monday, that was Labor Day, and of course I had a long list of things I had planned to do on Monday. And then I listened to this devotional. And it was really so eye-opening, because it was one of the times when I think it was Elijah was out, and God told him, he was just tired. And he just laid down, went to sleep. He woke up. God said eat. He ate. He went back. He rested. And we have to realize that sometimes we just have to take that rest in order to accomplish what God has set out for us to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this is Monday and it's Labor Day. Okay. So I just put my list aside, stretched out, turned on the ceiling fan, and I know Stanley was probably thinking, what's gotten into her? Because I just laid back, watched some TV, took a nap, and I'm usually Miss Busy Bee. Mm-hmm. I'm either on my laptop or, just doing something, going to the gym or whatever. Monday, I was like, okay, my body needs to shut down in order for me to be productive for the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, we have romanticized self-care. So we have made self-care to be these big things like taking a vacation or going to get a massage. But to prevent burnout, self-care has to be a part of your normal routine. And so self-care can be those things that are on those, if we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yes.
Those bottom tier. So take your lunch breaks. Go to the restroom. To me, I tell people, it is not a badge of honor when you tell me, I was so busy, I didn't eat all day. That's not a badge of honor. Thinking about how you can, for a period of my life, really my self-care when Carson was really little was her bath time, because it was the only time that I had where it was still and it was quiet and it was me and her. And so I did not compromise that. She was 6 months old. And so I think really finding ways where we can integrate self-care every day is very important. So if it's your devotional, maybe you need to wake up just 10 minutes earlier. So you can clear your mind, so you can have some time where it's just you and it's quiet and you can think about your thoughts. And so I think it's really important to have those things. And the other part when you were talking brought me back to something you said earlier about workplace. And, as I have become more of a leader and responsible, I would say, for more people, one of the things that's important to me is to model. I don't use the word balance because I don't think balance exists. And, my friend Robbie will talk about balance as a myth, right? And so, but to model what it's like to have a healthy rhythm. And I'll never forget the bosses that did that for me and how it completely changed my workplace. So even if I'm up on my email past time or I'm working on a Saturday, I still set the email to send Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Because I feel like even if a person is asleep, you can turn your notifications off, whatever. If I'm sending that email that time, in some ways it sends some message that this is when everyone should be working or that we should be at this pace. And that's just not necessarily true. There are some times when I'm up working way past time I should, but I don't want to set the idea that that's the expectation. Right. And so even if it's an implicit kind of message, it still gets sent. And so I've been really trying. That's one change I've made probably over the last couple of weeks, is to be really intentional about setting that email to send between work hours.
That's good. I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah,
because I do, when I get emails from someone that sending me an email at 1:30 in the morning, I'm like, what are they doing up? But I'm guilty of doing that as well. But I'm concerned that the other person isn't getting rest.
Right.
So that's a good tip.
Yeah, and it was so funny because when I was nursing Nolan, I would be at random times, right? And so I'd be like, well, I could be on my laptop. And then I realized, I was like, this is not a healthy precedent. And so I really tried to be intentional over the last couple of weeks about doing that. And even if, even if someone sends me an email at a late time, I'll still respond and try to set the message to send the next morning.
Thank you for watching Counselors Connection, Real Talk. Tune in next time for part 2 of today's episode.
A mystery. Let's share a mystery.